These indictments are going to be served, and some of the people that are arrested and perp walked are going to be absolute shockers to the public.
Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I want to wish you all a very happy new year, and we are going to ring out 2017 the very same way we rang it in by talking about truth bombs. Listen to this. 2018 looks to be shaping up as a barn burner for the arrests of child molesters and human traffickers. Not only are there over 10,000 sealed indictments, President Trump shocked the world by signing an executive order targeting those who have committed human rights abuses. And one thing regarding Pizzagate. I personally believe it is 100% true based on the leaked emails, pedophile logos of the various pizza joints, hanging art in Podesta's home, and even video footage of bands that have played in these quote-unquote family pizza parlors. I can only hope and pray that 2018 sees perp walks and major jail time for those involved, and I would not vote against public hanging. Guess what, folks? Those aren't my words. Those are the words of our friend Bill Holter, who joins us right now. Bill, how are you?
Good, Sean.
Hey, it's great to have you. Now, you'll recall we rang in 2017 talking about it being the year of truth bombs, and boy, it did not disappoint. And now I really think we're on the cusp of seeing some of those perp walks you just described.
Yeah, I think 2018 is going to be the year that truth matters.
It's always mattered, Bill, but in 2017, and of course throughout the history of this country, we've had a crooked mainstream media covering up truth and covering up the criminality of those like the Podesta brothers, Tony and John, and Hillary Clinton and her cohorts, and the murder of Seth Rich, which I believe links directly back to the DNC and probably Hillary herself. Truth has always mattered, but now because we have a real president in the White House instead of the wicked witch of the North, South, East, and West, we stand a chance. Truth stands a chance.
Well, you're right. Truth has always mattered, but truth has been, up until this point, truth has basically been ignored. And you can see that everywhere. You can see that in markets. You can see that in people who are walking around with their freedom, believing they're scot-free. The thing is, Hillary was supposed to have won. And had Hillary won, none of what we saw in 2017, or very little of what we saw in 2017, would have come to light. And it has come to light, and like you said just a couple minutes ago, the executive order that President Trump just signed, that is very telling. I do find it interesting that it's come out and you have not had anyone jumping up and down screaming and yelling about it. I mean, think about the executive orders in the past that President Trump, for instance, the immigration executive orders. Before the day was out, people were jumping up and down screaming and yelling. But there's been nothing. There's been no retort to this. There's been literally no coverage of this in any media.
Do you find yourself more and more willing to talk about some of these things that have previously been left to the realm of quote-unquote conspiracy theorists? For instance, you talk about Pizzagate. We know that PEDO is the global problem of child sex trafficking, and it goes straight back to the British royals and people they've knighted like Sir Edward Heath, the former Prime Minister of the UK, and Jimmy Savile, who had been knighted by the Queen and was best friends with Prince Charles. We know he was trafficking children. I mean, it just seems like if you're woke, these are not issues that are left to the realm of conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy fact, and I'm glad you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, it's obvious with all the information that we've gotten over the last year and a half, going back to, well, not quite year and a half, but going back to October of 2016, all the WikiLeaks stuff and the emails that came from Podesta himself that were never denied. They've never been called fake emails. Actually, what they did was the left complained that it was illegal to have stolen those emails, but they never wanted to talk about the content. But if you talk about the content, it's absolutely obvious that Pizzagate is 100% real. There's zero doubt in my mind.
Well, I agree with you 100%. It is 100% real. And Pizzagate is simply this. It's not just Comet Ping Pong and James Alefantis and the Podesta brothers. It is the Washington, D.C. centric problem of child sex trafficking and pedophilia. Okay, and we know that the Justice Department, at least under Hillary Clinton, at least under Obama and Hillary Clinton over at the State Department, we know that the State Department was moving to normalize 12 perversions, including pedophilia and bestiality.
Well, we've already found a secret memo coming out of the Justice Department. They're now going to go after 12 new perversions, things like bestiality, polygamy, having sex with little boys and making that legal, and not only that, but they have a whole list of strategies to go after the churches, the pastors, and any businesses that tries to assert their religious liberty. This is coming, and it's coming like a tidal wave.
All right, so Congress, I just want to get this straight. So you are aware of a Justice Department memo that says there will be an effort to legitimize or legalize bestiality, pedophilia, and, as you put it, perversions?
That's correct.
In what kind of sick, warped world would that possibly happen? Certainly not the world in which Donald Trump is the president.
Well, and not the world in which we grew up in. I mean, if that's where we were headed. That is exactly where we were headed, is that there were going to be perversions that would have been made legal. And the right could jump up and down and holler, but the courts, I'm sure, would have been stuffed further with left-wing loonies. They would have said, yeah, these perversions, have at it.
Well, I think we can talk about some of these truth bombs specifically that we saw in 2017. So feel free to delve into that a little bit. But at the top of the list for me personally remains a truth teller, I believe, somebody who's trying to make change from within and saw a lot of corruption and wanted it to be known. And he was murdered. His name is Seth Rich. Do you think we're ever going to get to the bottom of who killed or who's responsible for the murder of Seth Rich? I think you and I know who that is, or at least the people who probably ordered that hit. But do you think the truth will ever be known to the public at large?
That's a tough call whether the truth actually comes out, but just the fact that Donna Brazile said she feared for her life, that tells you pretty much all you need to know.
Former DNC big Donna Brazile dropped a bombshell in her new book when she admitted that she feared for her life in the wake of the murder of Seth Rich. That means that Brazile knew that Rich had been murdered for political purposes.
Yeah, I agree. And, we have Kim.com coming out saying, and essentially Julian Assange saying, read between the lines in many ways, he offered a $25,000 reward, I believe, for information leading to the arrest of those who murdered Seth Rich. These guys have basically said Seth Rich was the DNC leaker. He was the inside guy. And I think John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, made an example of him.
QAnon in this long timeline basically said that Debbie Wasserman Schultz paid MS-13, the Hispanic gang, to do a hit to kill Seth Rich, to do it both in retaliation for having stolen the DNC emails, Podesta emails, and getting them to WikiLeaks. Could have done it with a USB drive. It was an internal job. And also to prevent any further leaks or any further damage that could be done by Seth Rich. But it was pretty startling when QAnon just directly says Debbie Wasserman Schultz put out a 187, which is a kill job, on Seth Rich, and the two these MS-13 gang members who did the hit were subsequently killed themselves. That would have kind of completed the cover-up of that murder. And I think we need to get that investigation open, and we need to find out really who killed Seth Rich, because it's at the heart of this entire issue of Russian collusion.
Well, Sean, there's also been a lot of information over the last 3 to 6 months regarding how crooked the FBI is, how divided. I shouldn't say crooked, because obviously you still have some very good people in there, but some very bad things were done. And I believe what's going to happen, I think what you'll see is these indictments are going to be served, and some of the people that are arrested and perp walked are going to be absolute shockers to the public. And I think that's what is going to wake people up. That's what's going to wake the population up. It will wake the left up. As I wrote I did that 3-part Truth Bomb series. Parts 1 and 2 are out. 3, I think, will be out tomorrow. But as I wrote in that Truth Bomb series, pedophilia crosses anyone who is a sane human being's red line.
Well, that's 100% the case, and I think that it'll bring the right and the left together. Now, there are some on the left that are hopelessly brainwashed and worship at the altar of abortion as sort of their number one belief that they seem to fight for is this idea of women's rights to abort their babies. Why do you think the elites love abortion?
They love nothing more than an abortion. Why? Because it's as pure as it gets. The energy from that unborn child is as strong as you can get. They have parties not far from here where they get pregnant and they perform abortions, ritual abortions, in front of a crowd of people. This is what the Satanists do.
I don't go to fetish parties. I went to one time. I've seen them really bad.
Was it like a donkey show or?
No, actually, I think they actually kill people there and stuff. They pay like up to like 100,000 people to see people get
executed.
I'm not kidding. But I went to another one where literally I saw like the grossest. I wanted to throw up.
And you know who goes to these parties? They all do. Top Hollywood, top bankers, top government, top anything.
And that's what these elites are into at the highest level. Boy, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? It just sounds crazy, but the fact of the matter is it's 100% true. Look, you can't make this stuff up without being sued. You can't say that Prince Charles was best friends with Jimmy Savile, who trafficked children to the elite in London, without being sued if it were not true. Liz Crokin can't say half of the things she says on Twitter about very specific people if these things aren't true. Tony Podesta, John Podesta, they would fear a lawsuit because it would lead to discovery in a court of law. Isn't that interesting?
That's what I was going to say isn't it funny that you've not seen any lawsuits, any libel, any slander lawsuits at all? They cannot have a lawsuit because then you have discovery. And discovery opens up a can of worms that grabs probably thousands and thousands of people.
As it relates to truth bombs in 2017, I think most of the truth bombs were being dropped by the alternative media. They're not coming from the mainstream media. Well, and actually, I'll make an amendment to that. Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity are doing a good job.
Yeah, I was going to say they are pecking away at the edges regarding campaign finance laws broken, FBI, et cetera, et cetera.
This is not the only federal investigation that has shaken public confidence recently. Consider some of the others. The FBI had Omar Mateen under surveillance for 10 months, and yet somehow didn't hinder his planning or execution of the Pulse nightclub massacre. The FBI was also apparently aware of New York City killer Sayfullo Saipov, Fort Hood shooter Nadal Hassan, Boston bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev, and a list of other killers, but failed to stop any of their attacks. How come? The FBI famously investigated Hillary Clinton's email server for more than a year, during which time, for some reason, the Bureau gave immunity to several top aides for no obvious reason and failed to tape record key interviews. Why is that? Speaking of emails, the FBI never examined the DNC's email server after it was supposedly hacked. Instead, they just accepted the claim of a private contractor employed by the Democratic Party that the hacking was the work of the Russian government. Why didn't one of the Bureau's many tech teams conduct its own investigation of a matter this important and politically sensitive? Meanwhile, in case after case, the FBI's supposedly incorruptible white-collar division has leaked sensitive details of current investigations to the press. How does behavior like that restore public confidence in federal law enforcement? It doesn't, of course, and it shouldn't. We have a right to be worried about the FBI. There is no more powerful federal agency in this country.
So the question then becomes, Bill, does 2018 become the year of the truth bomb in which the mainstream media has to share some of this information? Or will they just continue to cover it up until they go out of business?
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying 2018 is the year that truth matters. And the reason it's going to matter is because it's going to become widespread, and it will be forced to be widespread because it's obvious. I mean, let's say that they arrest 1,000 people or 2,000 people, and they're big household names, just shocking names. How does that get hidden? How does that not get reported on? It will be reported on, and people are going to lose their minds.
In your mind, what were some of the biggest truth bombs in 2017?
Well, I think probably the biggest is in regard to the rule of law. For instance, the Bundy hung jury. I mean, that was a railroad from day one, and we found out that BLM, FBI, I mean, they hid evidence, created evidence, railroaded the guy. I just think that the rule of law is beginning to come back. Now, like we were just talking about, we've not seen arrests in the pedophilia area, but I think that is coming.
Well, we've seen a lot of arrests, as you know, of pedophiles and pedophile networks and child sex trafficking networks around the country and even around the globe in 2017. We just haven't seen that many noteworthy household names. And what we need to see is household names, right?
Right. No big names yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the economy and the missing trillions. Catherine Austin Fitts has covered this in detail. Do you think there's a chance that the rest of the world continues to prop us up until we can stand on our own 2 feet? Look, all we need to do is renounce the Federal Reserve debt. All we need to do is get rid of those monsters. Although, truth be known, I don't think Trump's going to do that.
But Sean, the problem is, I mean, that's a nice theory, but you have to remember that one man's debt is another man's asset. So you can't just wipe the debt out. The missing $21 trillion is huge. That's a huge truth bomb on its own. $21 trillion, that's as much as the nation has accumulated debt in 200 plus years. And follow the money. Where did it go?
Where did it go? Did it go to the...
That'll be a truth bomb. Or truth bombs.
Where did it go, Bill? Did it go to the deep state, breakaway civilization that Catherine Austin Fitts and Joseph P. Farrell talk about?
That would be my guess, is that you just saw it slide out from under the Pentagon, out from under HUD, and into the pockets of the deep state. And now if they kept those funds in dollars or dollar-denominated assets, that's going to be a problem, because the dollar is... for many reasons, the dollar is on the doorstep of collapse. 2017 was a pretty good start. We were down, 11, 12% for the year versus other currencies.
All right, so let's talk, too, about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. Some of those folks out there that used to be big silver bugs are now firmly on the Bitcoin gold bandwagon. And I've been having conversations with people that are very nervous that Bitcoin is not the solution for humanity. I mean, look what's happening as we speak today. Ripple just overtook Ethereum as the second most valuable cryptocurrency. And Ripple, look at the supporters of Ripple. That's a bankster coin. So It seems like the banksters might have other plans for the cryptocurrencies. And I wonder, can Bitcoin save us?
Well, first, I think it's interesting. The NSA actually wrote about cryptocurrencies back in 1996. And most people say it doesn't matter who created Bitcoin. I say it does matter who created Bitcoin. And I also think it's quite interesting that who are two of the largest Bitcoin holders in the world? The Winklevoss twins. And where were they 10 years ago? They were fighting over the startup of Facebook. There's your connection. Facebook is the CIA's wet dream.
What I'm dubious about is the fact that cryptocurrencies in general Well, look, cryptocurrencies in general still seem to be maligned by governments around the world. So I try to look at the entire cryptocurrency story as a cup half full story. I'm not sure what the truth is. I just don't think Bitcoin specifically is going to save humanity. There's so few people involved in it.
In my opinion, it's pretty obvious that blockchain is going to be used by sovereign governments to issue currency, their currencies. I think that's where we're headed. And the simple reason is because every transaction can be tracked.
Well, where are we headed then with gold and silver? I follow Cliff High pretty closely, and his WebBot project had been predicting for a very long time a huge run-up in the price of silver. And yet silver continues to be mired at 16 or 17, and anybody who bet on cryptocurrencies has been right up to this point. When does silver and gold break free, if ever?
Well, I think what you're going to see in silver and gold is we're going to find out, and we have recently found out how COMEX has not defaulted and where all these contracts that it looked like were walking away from delivery, they're not walking away from delivery. They're going through the process of exchange for physical. The bulk of that is being sent to London. And you've got huge amounts of delivery just for December. It's a big percentage of annual global production. So I think what you're going to see in gold and silver is that the revelation of lack of inventory or lack of ability to deliver is going to come forth. And when that comes forth, I would expect to see huge moves. And let me backtrack just a little bit, because we've heard, and myself included, we've heard, big numbers, $10,000 gold, $50,000 gold. My partner Jim talked about $50,000 gold maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I wrote, $50,000 may be laughably low. And the troll community will say, $50,000 pie in the sky cannot happen. Well, look at what happened to Bitcoin, which is basically digital air. Once the revelation comes about that physical gold and physical silver are not available for delivery, what kind of numbers do you think you're going to see?
Well, that's what we've been wondering, because look, the COMEX has been covering up. The COMEX in the City of London has been protecting the price of silver and gold, protecting the petrodollar and all of these fiat currencies by,
LBMA.
Pardon?
The LBMA.
Right. Well, and the COMEX here with the futures, they just sell, as much paper, silver, and gold into the market as they want, thereby, suppressing the price.
The CFTC, when it did its most recent report on silver, used the term which we use in the market, the physical market. And we use that term, as did the CFTC in that report, to talk about the OTC market, forwards, OTC options, physical metal, and everything else. And people will say, well, and you've heard it today, there's not that much physical metal out there. There isn't. But in the physical market, as the market uses that term, there is much more metal than that. There's 100 times what there is.
We just need to see that come to an end. We've been talking about that, though, for so long, Bill, it feels like it'll never actually end. But, of course, the same thing was true about the Clinton-Bush regime. I never thought that would end, and she didn't make it into the White House.
Right. Well, the bottom line is the world is in the biggest bubble. It's the everything bubble. Every asset is a bubble, except for commodities, except for tangibles. But, look at it. All stock markets, all bond markets, the currencies themselves, just the fact that silver and gold are suppressed to these levels, the currencies, the global currencies themselves are in a bubble as far as purchasing power is concerned. And all at the same time, the world has never been as indebted on any basis you want to look at, total ratio to GDP, ratio to income, whatever you want to compare it to. There's more debt than any time in history. At the same time, it's the biggest bubble in history, and that bubble is held up by debt. And by the way, gold and silver are held down, if you want to call it by debt, being held down by paper contracts that cannot deliver the metal. So that's leveraged. Gold and silver are leveraged to the downside.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's talk about 2018 and any truth bombs you think that are coming. What do you see happening in 2018?
Well, first and foremost, I do think that there's going to be arrests. And I do believe that, as we talked about earlier, I think the pedophilia is going to cross many, many red lines. And I think you'll see people come together, whether they're right, left, Democrat, Republican, what have you. I think you're going to see the majority of people come together in aghast.
Have you been following the QAnon stuff at all and all of these strange flights? We have flights reportedly heading to Guantanamo, and there's very, very strange things happening. We had the shutdown of the Atlanta airport for, I believe it was 10 hours, and then we had the Q Post saying 10 hours. So many strange things happening. We are speculating that there is a Trump deep state counter coup happening, and that QAnon represents the white knights that are actually coming to rescue the constitutional republic. What are your feelings on all of that?
Well, he's had some pretty good information. And obviously, there's still speculation. I mean, obviously, it's still in the speculation phase, but some of what he has come out with since, what was it, back in August or September, has come true. So there's something to it.
And what are your thoughts on Tony Podesta stepping down from the Podesta group?
It was an obvious step. And the fact that he stepped down and didn't fight tells you, he's on weak ground.
And his brother and he both have a very strange taste in artwork. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I wrote about that in, I think it was either the second or third part of the Truth Bomb series. And actually, in the quote you started this off with, I mean, just looking at the art in their homes tells you they're pedophiles. Plain and simple. I mean, that's obvious.
Well, I think it is too, because who would purchase that type of art if they weren't... Look, if you're going to purchase art that depicts children, and in some cases children that appear to no longer be alive laying in a field, or children that are in a tiled room, a torture room of sorts somewhere with their hands tied behind their backs, and they're half-dressed, who on earth would display that in their house, much less purchase it, if they weren't into that kind of thing?
Well, they just not only displayed it in their house, but they had parties where pictures were taken, and that's where you've seen the photographs of this art is in the house during parties.
And yet, despite the WikiLeaks Podesta email links and the very, very strange repeated use of language like pasta and hot dogs and walnut sauce by Podesta and his friends, and handkerchiefs and other very strange language that the FBI has said is pedophilic language, we have CNN saying the entire Comet Ping Pong Pizzagate narrative was completely debunked and, quote-unquote, repeatedly debunked.
October 30th, a Clinton-hating, Trump-loving Twitterer claimed a police source said Clinton was at the center of a pedophilia ring. Others latched onto this, seemingly hoping it was true, scouring dark corners of the web for possible clues. This is how conspiracy theories are threaded together, lie by lie.
That's what they say, but I've seen no debunking whatsoever, Bill.
Well, I think Snopes debunked it. And that tells you enough right there, because it came from Snopes.
Well, Snopes, that's so funny you'd say that, because I typed in Trump executive order, and the very first return at the top is a Snopes.com article fact check. Did Trump sign an executive order to seize the assets of Clinton? Look, that's the best they have, Bill. That's the best they have, aside from CNN and Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer and MSNBC and Rachel Maddow, is Snopes.
But, Sean, if you notice, when real allegations are brought up, the standard answer is that's been debunked. You hear Hillary say it, you hear the Podestas say it, You hear, CNN, MSNBC, you hear them all say it. It's been debunked.
Well,
I mean, has 9/11 been debunked?
Our purpose was to document the event.
they would say so. Well, they would say that 9/11 being an inside job has been debunked, right? But they won't show their audience World Trade Center 7. They won't explain to their audience that NIST took, 8-9 years to explain the collapse of World Trade Center 7 and couldn't do it. Yeah, they couldn't do it because they wouldn't include the notion that explosives were used to bring down that building. All right.
There's only one explanation, Sean. The only question is who, not how.
What do you think is the cabal that is actually standing opposed to Trump? What is the cabal, do you think, that pulled off 9/11 and then blamed it on Osama bin Laden to take us into endless unconstitutional wars without end? I think I know, and people will debate it all day long, say it's the Vatican, it's the British Royals, it's the Rothschilds. What's your take on who's behind all of this evil?
The head man himself, Satan.
Well, I did just talk to Liz Crokin recently, and she said this is their religion, which is why they're into all of this pedophilia and child sacrifice and all of this horrible stuff we talk about. Pizzagate, Pedogate, Jimmy Savile. This is part of their religion, and at the end of the day, they really do, believe it or not, worship Satan. So you think it's Satanists that are behind all of this, Luciferians?
In one form or another, sure. They have to be.
I wonder what we'd find out from all of those Clinton emails if we could get, there has just been another recent dump of Clinton emails, but I wonder if we could get our hands on all of them. What do you think we'd find out?
Well, there was a dump of, I think, 2,600 emails off of Wiener's laptop. Probably not the real juicy ones, but Judicial Watch got 2,600 emails released. They'll be released today, actually. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, and I saw that, actually, and I tweeted out, please also release the video that NYPD insiders claim show, allegedly, very vile video of Hillary Clinton involved in sex with minors.
Well, we'll see, Sean. This is going to be the year that truth finally does matter.
Okay, Bill, so where can people find those articles you wrote, Truth Bombs Part 1 and 2?
You can go to www.jsmindset.com. I wrote them for Miles Franklin, so you can go to milesfranklin.com. They'll be on either of the two sites.
All right, very good. And I hope 2018 is the year of not only truth bombs, Bill, but the year of PERP walks.
Public hangings.
Public hangings would be good. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Bill, thanks so much for your time, and I wish you a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Sean. Thanks for having me again.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate your support at sgtreport.com for real news 24/7. Wishing you a very Happy New Year. God bless.
It's SRA, so that's a satanic ritualistic abuse of children. So it's not just engaging in sex with these kids. They're involved in satanic abuse. They torture them and they abuse them in satanic rituals. And they believe that they are, channeling these like dark forces, these evil forces, and it gives them power.